Kaustubha Das here with the big announcement for Wisdom of the Sages listeners. This August will be Ashram Month at the Super Soul Farm. Simple ashram living, rising early, morning kirtan, yoga and pranayama, healthy vegan and vegetarian meals, farm seva and being immersed in nature, and then gathering in the evenings for kirtan and readings. Plus, each week we'll have a lead presenter teaching a different facet of the philosophy and lifestyle of Bhakti-yoga. Week number 1 will be the exceptional Bhakti Lata teaching a course called The Beauty of Bhakti, bringing the culture of love and devotion into our lives. Week number 2 is my brother from another mother, Raghunath, teaching Falling in Love with Divinity, the Bhakti-yogi's method for opening the heart. And week number 3 is myself with a course called Following the Path, examining the history and teachings of Bhakti-yoga. You can come for 1, 2, or all 3 weeks, and the pricing is by donation. For more dates and information, go to wisdomofthesages.com/events. Peace. Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm with a house full of yogis. Say hello. This is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to Friday. It's Tell a Friend Friday, Kaustubha. That's what we've designated Friday. That means you got to reach out and share spiritual info with people who you feel like, this is my friend. They're going through it right now. They could use something like this. Take a screenshot or go and share the link on Apple iPads with someone you know. If you share the screenshot, tag us. And you never know when something comes to somebody, when you never know where people are at. Sometimes they even appear pretty, just thoughtful, but they could be suffering tremendously. And it is wisdom teachings that really can add peace to a person's mind. After all, where is our pain anyway? I cut my finger really bad yesterday or 2 days ago. I crushed it with a boulder. It was so painful.
Boulder.
I was moving boulders with my bare hands.
All right.
And Mustache Ananda was with me. And I just went, yeah! And it hurt like crazy. But you know what, brother?
Yeah.
The mind causes much more pain than that boulder. The mind is incredibly tricky. And unless we heal that mind, we're in constant pain. And that's why the big part of the yoga system is how can we heal this mind? If I can heal the mind, if I can change my mind, if I can deal with my mind, it's going to change the way I see the world. And that's going to relieve a lot of our pain. That's the thing we're talking about. We're talking about transcending. What do we have to transcend? We have to transcend the mind. The soul has to transcend the mind. And that's the basis of all these spiritual literature. I transcend the mind because this mind is sort of like stitching me, right? Who said that? Herman Hesse?
C.S. Lewis.
Stitching us. C.S. Lewis. No, it was Herman Hesse.
Herman Hesse?
Stitching us to the material world, stitching us to the worldly plane.
Knitting. It was knitting.
Knitting. I said stitching.
Was that Hesse or was that this week?
It was Lewis, C.S. Lewis on Monday.
Okay. Stitching. What other type of sewing reference can I give? Looming us.
I don't think that works.
No, looming. Stitching does. Stitching.
Stapling.
Stapling us to the material world. So here we are, ingesting wisdom literature on a regular basis.
All right.
Welcome to the show, everybody.
Announcements.
Mara, you got any announcements? Look at Mara. She's live in the kitchen. She made a burrito festival yesterday. It was incredible, including jalapeno lemonade and vegan gluten-free cupcakes.
Okay.
Boom. That's so good. Good job. Yeah, everybody's just, yes. Mara, announcements, please.
Back to recovery group meeting today at 1 p.m. Tomorrow's questions day. So if you have questions, you can email us wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
And on Sunday for our Patreon members, Yamuna Bihari is offering his Marma workshop at 2 p.m.
2 p.m. Marma.
Sunday will also be, the spiritual scientist will be interviewed.
If you haven't heard the spiritual scientist, you're going to love this man. We're excited to have him back on the show. Okay, Kaustubha. You ready for a wisdom nugget?
I'm ready.
It is C.S. Lewis week.
Concluding.
And what do we say about C.S. Lewis, Mara? What was his backstory?
He studied at Oxford like Kaustubha.
Oh, yeah. He was also an Oxford alumni.
Yeah. And he was also friends with J.R.R. Tolkien, the author of
right.
the Lord
Hobbit?
of the Rings trilogy.
The
Yeah,
Hobbit.
The Hobbit.
Man, between Narnia and The Hobbit. It's pretty impressive.
Mm.
Okay, here's our nugget. In any fairy... Wait, hold that. Take two. In any fairly large and talkative community, such as a university, there is always the danger that those who think alike should gravitate together, where they will henceforth encounter. Huh?
To gather together? Where is Kether?
I didn't say. I said together, man.
All right, somebody said together. It's like, what? Together. Okay, gravitate
Ready?
together.
In any fairly large and talkative community, such as a university, there is always the danger.
Could you try again?
That's right.
You hear that?
Yeah.
Watch.
Everyone's getting on your case today, Raghunath. I'm sorry. Please.
In any fairly large and talkative community as a university, there is always the danger that those who think alike should gravitate together, where they will henceforth encounter opposition only in the emasculated form of rumor that the outsiders say thus and thus.
Okay.
The absent are easily refuted. Complacent dogmatism thrives, and differences of opinion are embittered by the group hostility. Each group hears not the best, but the worst that the other group can say. Ooh, how relevant.
Very relevant.
How sanguine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's just, in one sense, this is just it's within the mundane realm, right? It's like, just like how we're getting along with each other, but really it has so much to do with the state of our minds and our mind's ability to perceive truth. And if we can't even perceive truth on the mundane level, what hope do we have of going deeper into spiritual truth, right? So this is just, he's describing a social dynamic that I think is like, probably it's got to be blown up. He would be like, if he could see our world today, our 24-hour news cycles and the nature of the public discourse, like now, it's
Well,
like
the
what
thing
he's
is,
saying, it just seems like super magnified, right?
there is no public discourse. It's just like echo chambers of repeating the same thing.
Yeah.
To think with discernment and discrimination is practically lost. You have to opt into a particular party, and then you just repeat, and you practically know what people are going to say in advance because it's already been said in that same echo chamber. It'd be wonderful to hear someone disagree and have an open discussion of something within that community, right?
Sure.
The talkative community, such as a university. It'd be great. That's the great part of the society we live in, where you're supposed to be able to have a conversation and discussion and a debate and still treat each other with a type of respect anyway. Why? Because that's how we get to the conclusion. That's how we get to truth, actually, right? You go back and forth, you discuss, and they actually do have a good point. You concede when you feel like, you've got a good point there.
Yeah, yeah, and maybe like that most important way of showing respect is to actually try to understand someone, right? Try to actually understand what they're saying.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. You know what, Kaustubha?
Yeah.
Let's find out what we have in common
Oh,
instead of
okay.
finding out the differences in each other.
And,
What do you think about that, Mara? Is that a takeaway worthy?
Yeah, I'm still trying to get Kaustubha's takeaway, but yes.
Okay, don't forget that one because that was a good one. Hi, I'm Raghunath, and this is my takeaway for today.
But here, he's speaking specifically about this dynamic where he calls it the emasculated form of rumor that outsiders say thus and that. Emasculate, I mean, it's made. I'm not gonna argue against my quote unquote opponent's real argument, right? I'm gonna not even try to understand it fully. I'm gonna characterize it in my own way, in a weaker form, and attack that, right? And you actually never get to what this kind of discourse is meant to lead to, like towards like a shared agreement, like, or even if there's a disagreement at the end, like a deeper understanding of the nature of the disagreement. You're just trying to win. And so you put up the straw man of the other person's argument, which brings us back to, we've discussed on the show before. Do you remember these, Raghunath? Daniel Dennett's 4 steps to arguing intelligently?
I don't remember that.
And
that's okay. That's okay that I don't remember it.
It's okay.
I have too many
We're going
things.
to remind you right now.
Yeah.
His first rule is, number 1, you should attempt to re-express your target's position so clearly, vividly, and fairly that your target says, thanks, I wish I'd thought of putting it that way. You like that?
I like it. Yeah.
This is what we need to do.
First, seek to understand and then be understood. Boom.
Okay, thank you. So these are his 4. That was the first one, right? You should, if you're disagreeing with someone, the first thing you need to do, because the 4th rule is until you've done the previous 3, you can't even begin a rebuttal. Okay. And so that means I'm not even going to try to argue against another person's position until I've expressed their position so clearly and vividly and fairly that they say, okay, you got it. That's exactly what I'm saying. That you said it even better than I could say it. Perfect. Right. Now we can talk, right? That's number 1. Number 2, you should list any points of agreement. This is what you were saying earlier, Raghunath. You should list any points of agreement, especially if they are not matters of general or widespread agreement. Okay, let's see where we agree, right? Let's see where we agree. And then number 3, you should mention anything you have learned from your target, right? Okay, and
love this
understanding. I've learned this, and that's important. But only then, number 4, only then are you permitted to say so much as a word of rebuttal or criticism.
The United Nations should hire you, Kaustubha. You can bring peace to this world.
I don't think I'm the guy, Raghunath.
You're right.
I think
Israel meet Palestine. This is Kaustubha. He's going to make it all work. I know it's been decades. I know.
We were talking with Raj Vihari, our friend who was here with us yesterday morning, at least in the Zoom audience, and he's a mediator by profession, right? Like a ombudsman, and he's really
first of all, he's a sage leader.
He's a sage.
He's a great soul. Leader. He's senior to me in Kaustubha. He was the first person I roommated with when I went to Vrindavan. He's incredibly zipped up and sharp and just a sweet man.
And
he's family.
And he's what was I going to say? Oh, and he's kind of really come onto our team now of Wisdom of the Sages, right?
Yeah, he's a sage leader. He loves Wisdom of the Sages. I always get fascinated when very involved people listen to the Wisdom of the Sages. I thought it was just for the dented cans.
All right. And so in any case, we were having a meeting with him the other day, and he was wearing a shirt and a tie, and he said, "Okay, I got to go now," because he was about to kind of mediate a discussion between the federal government and a Native American group. It's like he's trying to solve a problem that's been there for hundreds and hundreds of years. And but in any case, he really understands these things well. But this is it's so important. And you know what, Raghunath? It's going to play out. These kind of things, Bhakti has a lot to do with, it's kind of a shared experience, right? It's it's very much a communal practice. And within those communities, there's always going to be tensions. And so we need to,
I mean, you don't even need a community to get tension. You just need a couple.
well, in one sense, a couple's a small community, right?
Yeah.
But
Speak up when you bring 3, 4, 5, 10, 20.
Yeah.
Then get ready for
conflict,
chaos, conflict.
Okay. So these are important things, not just for, again, mundane social, like smooth relationships and social orders and so on. But it's important for to have depth of spiritual thought, to be able to perceive truth. We need to learn to think fairly and learn to think in a way where we can see the good in the other, try to understand them, and then work out the differences. And that's going to play out right in Bhagavatam we're at right now, Raghunath. It's all going to connect.
All right. You ready to dive in to the sweet nectar honeypot?
Yep.
All right. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudirayat. Before we start the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan. Unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttamasloke bhakti bhavati naistiki. By regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated, and loving service to the Supreme Lord, whose praise with transcendental songs will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chaksuran Midadam Nena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My teachers are opening my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my obeisances at their lotus feet. Mara, where are we at?
Reading from Canto 4, Chapter 19, Text 33.
Text 33.
All right, I was right on it today.
Were you?
No.
Okay. But why don't we...
I was, actually.
Why don't we pick up where we left off yesterday, Raghunath? Do you remember where that was?
No, I don't.
We were discussing these two different kind of moral ideas, right?
Oh, yeah. What were they called again?
They're called... one is called consequentialism. And one is called... What is it called again? Deontological ethics.
You've already lost me.
All right. But to make it simple, one is like the deontological ethics has to do with the morality of an action, like the morality is invested within an action itself, right? Like to speak truth is moral, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And then consequentialism, it says actually the morality lies in the consequences of the action.
Okay.
Right.
Ontological. And what's the second one?
Consequentialism.
Okay, and we lean towards
deontological.
We lean towards consequentialism, right?
Well, it seems to be, and we can get into this because it's so interesting. But like in the Bhagavatam, it seems to be, it does seem to be like the more matured kind of understanding goes towards consequentialism, right? And one example of that has to do with Bishmas, kind of like there's a young Bhisma speaks a certain way, and then Bhishma on his deathbed, on his bed of arrows, speaks another way, and that has something to do. We discussed two stories yesterday that are brought up. Krishna brings them up when he's speaking to Arjuna, and then later in referring to that conversation, Bhishma brings up the same two references in speaking to Yudhishthira, and those are the stories of Kaushika, and I think his name is Balaka. Right. Mm-hmm. So Balaka was like, in one sense, he was like, his actions could be considered immoral. He was a hunter, and even in this one instance, he killed a blind animal, which seems like that's even like more. That's immoral.
Like the fast track to hell.
Yeah, right. but for him, it just he ended up somehow that beast was like it had been cursed, and it was like this demoniac beast that was meant to cause so much trouble, and he was actually blessed by having killed it, right? It was an immoral activity that somehow had a very positive consequence, and he benefited from it. Whereas you had Kaushika, who was a person that his idea of morality was very much that deontological, ethical kind of idea, where he was thinking, speaking truth is moral, and so I will always act morally, and I'll always speak the truth. And when some
Dacoits.
dacoits, criminals, were chasing some innocent people, they asked Kaushika which way did they go. He knew that he was going to endanger their lives, but his understanding of morality was so simplistic that he's telling the truth is moral, right? And so he said they went that way, and he had to see hell for that. So Krishna brought those stories up, and then Bhisma brings those stories up again in speaking to Yudhishthira. It's such a fascinating conversation between Yudhishthira and Bhisma. But early in Bhisma's, earlier in Mahabharata, you remember the circumstance Bhisma found himself in, relevant to this, where he took a vow, right? What was Bhisma's vow?
He took a vow of brahmacharya, celibacy, his entire life. And what were the Which is a very difficult vow to take because he was a king and he had that, karma to be powerful and a leader. And so, they called it quite a fantastic vow.
And why did he take the vow?
Okay, you want me to zoom back here?
Yeah, zoom back.
Let's see. He took that vow because his father, Shantanu, was married to, let's see. Okay,
Satyavati.
Well, he was married to Ganga first.
He was married to Ganga first.
And he was born of Ganga.
Bhishma was born of Ganga.
Yeah.
But then Ganga, she wasn't an earthly being, so she left and went off to the heavens, right? Leaving.
Yes, she left, and she left him with his son. So now he's got an heir to the throne.
Who he loved.
But he's whom he loved. He really loved, and he was trained in the heavens by, who was he trained by? I can't remember. He was trained in the heavens to be a warrior. Mm-hmm. And so he was considered the most powerful and obviously the most qualified to be the next emperor.
As well as the eldest son. So
the eldest son. So with the seminal succession, he would be the next king. But the king now was very lonely. He was unmarried, and he met this very poor fisherman's daughter. And he asked for her hand in marriage. And
he was
the father of the daughter,
right? He was like,
he was madly in love with her.
Yeah.
And so the father said, yeah, you can marry my daughter, no problem. Except that their son, your son with my daughter, should be the next emperor, not Bhisma, your older son.
That's right.
And the father was like, what are you talking about? Everyone knows Bhisma is going to be the, what do you call that?
The next
heir.
King, the Yuvaraj.
The next king, the Yuvaraj. Everyone knows he's going to be the next king. How dare you ask me that? Don't you understand the benefit I'm giving your daughter? You live in a fishing village. Now she's going to be my wife. She's going to be an empress. And you want her son to be the king? Come on. And he said, sorry, that's the deal. You want to marry my daughter? That's what we're asking for. And so he went back very distressed to the palace. And his dear, teenage son's like, Dad, why are you so sad? You've been sad for like weeks. And then finally he confided with the chariot driver, right? The chariot drivers, the taxi drivers, they all know. They get lots of gossip.
So in other words, the father was walking around all depressed all the time. He's not going to tell Bhishma why, because it's on Bhishma's behalf that it was on Bhishma's behalf that he decided, I won't marry this girl because I want Bhishma to be king. So Bhishma couldn't get to the bottom of it. He got it from the chariot driver.
So he went to the chariot driver and said, yeah, it's, your father fell in love with this woman and now she won't marry him unless their son becomes the king. So Bhishma said, I'm going to go fix this. So he went out to find that fisherman father. And he said, what's the deal? My father wants to marry your daughter. What's the big deal about that? He said, it's not a big deal, but I just made a condition that you can't be the king, that their son must become the king. He's like, fine, that's fine with me. I don't care about becoming the king. I just would rather see my father happy. Right. He said, well, you're very noble, Bhishma, but you might have an offspring child that will claim ownership to that throne in the future. And therefore, it's still not good enough. And he said, well, if that's what you're really worried about, if that's the last thing that's holding back my father from being satisfied and feel connected within this world with your daughter, then I make a vow right now. I will not take a wife and I will not have any children. I'll just take a vow of brahmachari. And so that was such like a fantastic, incredible oath. That's where he got the name Bhishma. Before his name was Devavrata, then he got the nickname Bhishma, which means such a fantastic or terrible oath.
Okay, so he takes that vow, right? I will be celibate. I'll never have children, right? And then, but later on, what happens is that the son that becomes king dies young, right, and leaves no heir. And then Satyavati, the
fisherman's daughter,
the fisherman's daughter, now queen, and now the king has died. Now there's the queen, her son, her stepson, Bhisma, and she's encouraging Bhisma now become king, right? Because the one that became, my son died.
She had two sons. They both died.
Yeah. And so she's like, we need you to be king now.
Trivia question, Kaustubha. How did the second one die?
Leprosy?
Tuberculosis.
Oh, tuberculosis. Okay.
How did the first one die?
He got killed because he shared the same name as a Gandharva, and they fought over it. Right?
Is that a crazy story?
Chicharata? Yeah.
Yeah, he had the same name as like a demigod.
And they fought to the death over it. Yeah.
So they had no kids now. After all that, there was no
heir to the
throne. So the mother, the fisherman's daughter, was just like, "Okay, Bhishma, you become the king." He says,
Okay.
"No, I already made the vow. I'm not.
Right.
I made this vow for you.
Now
I can't go back on a vow."
This is what he says. Okay, she's like, the vow doesn't matter anymore, right? Like the vow is like it's null and void at this point, right? It's like it's moot. You took the vow so that your father would marry me, and so that my son would become king. My son became king, and he's dead now. There's no more need for your vow. It served its purpose, and now please. It's not even like breaking your vow. Now become king. He's like, no, I took a vow that I would never be king, right?
Okay, I got two things I'm going to squirrel in right now. Garima Nab says Brihaspati trained him in the heavens.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Brihaspati.
In the martial arts?
No, but in ethics.
Okay, in right.
Yeah, thank you, Garima. And also, Mara, did you notice that Kaustubha just said moot instead of mute? Which one's correct? You went to private school. Tell us.
That's a moot point.
Yeah.
It's not a mute point?
No, it's
mute.
moot.
I've been
It's a
saying
different
mute
word.
for 56 years.
Oh, come on.
It's a different word.
It's a different
They're
word.
two separate words. Yeah. Moot, M-O-O-T, is the word that Kaustubha used, a moot point.
Humiliated.
Raghunath,
Sometimes I speak very boldly too, and I might say
Raghunath,
it
when
wrong.
you're talking to Oxford scholars, you want to be careful with these kind of things, Okay. Okay. So this is so when she's saying it's moot, the point is moot, then this was Bhishma's response, right? He said, and this is a response that's full on deontological ethics, right? He says, again, Satyavati, I make the same vow to you. I can give up sovereignty over the three worlds, or yet among the gods, or whatever is greater than that, but in no way can I give up my vow. Okay, Raghunath? You're just looking everywhere. I'm reading. You look
For a refill.
Okay. He says, in no way can I give up my vow. The earth may give up its fragrance, and water its own flavor. The light may give up form. Air may give up the quality of touch. The sun its light, and smoke-bannered fire its heat. Ether may give up sound. The moon may give up the coolness of its rays. Indra, the slayer of Vritra, may renounce his courage. The king of Dharma may give up Dharma, but I shall never resolve in any way to abandon truth. Okay?
So this is ontological.
Deontological.
Deontological. That's the word?
Yeah.
Deontological. Okay, I was saying that wrong too. Okay, so he was basically laying. Yeah, it seemed like, come on, Bhishma,
I
be
took
the
a vow.
king,
I
right?
keep it no matter what. That's
Right.
that's morality, right? And this is all coming from Hridayananda Maharaj's. I'm drawing this from his paper on Vaishnava moral theology. But he writes, this speech is admirable, but it also reveals a lack of concern with consequences. In a sense, Bhishma declares here that even if the universe should collapse, he will not give up his vow. Consequences don't matter. All that does matter is the integrity of the act itself. In this case, the act of keeping one's vow. All right. Now, later on his bed of arrows, Yudhishthira is inquiring from Bhishma, who's been trained by Brihaspati in the heavens, on ethics, and he's inquiring from him about ethics. And there, Bhishma begins to speak more like Krishna was speaking earlier, and he talks about Balaka, and he talks about Kaushika, and he gives a whole thing, and then Hridana Maharaj summarizes the points that he makes, and here they are. There's 6 points. You ready?
Ready.
So he says here, Bhishma repeats the basic points of Vedic moral philosophy taught by Krishna himself earlier to Arjuna. Number 1, to understand what is moral behavior, we cannot, in every case, simply cite the moral rules of Scripture. Very important point, right?
Yeah, people do that all the time. Oh, yeah? Prabhupada said this.
Oh, yeah.
What does that have to do with anything?
Yeah. And so, like, the faith here of a Vedanta is that morality lies in Scripture. It does. But to understand what is moral behavior, you can't simply cite a rule, right? It can be deeper than that. Sometimes it goes much deeper than that. Number 2, one must also reason about morality. Number 3, in so reasoning, one must keep in mind that the whole purpose of moral principles is to benefit people. Right? Sometimes what's that saying? The operation was a success, but the patient died, right?
Yeah.
It's like, we followed all but these rules are meant to benefit people. If you follow them and it doesn't benefit people, then the whole purpose was lost. Number 4, at times, and this is big, right? At times, good people externally perform bad deeds. Number 5, at times, bad people externally perform good deeds. Right? How does this play out in terms of judgment, right? And then number 6, in such cases, one must look beyond appearances to see what actually produces good consequences. Okay, so this is, so much of the Mahabharata is getting into the idea that Dharma is sometimes difficult to comprehend, difficult to apply, right? There's a scriptural rule, but then there's a circumstance, and it becomes, that it seems very difficult to apply. It seems like it could go either way, and people fight over these things. But even Yudhishthira, who's like known as the king of Dharma, right, is going to Bhishma because he just can't quite figure out what's right and what's wrong. Right? So that alone should help protect, that idea alone should help us be hesitant to become, to develop a sense of moral superiority or, becoming judgmental towards others, right? It's meant to,
quick to condemn, quick to judge.
Yeah, it's meant to kind of get us to harness that a bit, within ourselves, think more deeply, contemplate more deeply, investigate more deeply, into these kind of matters. So here we have a circumstance where King Indra, right, the king of heaven, the person that is also meant to be an emblem of Dharma, he did something that was apparently very adharmic. He put on the clothes of a holy man, put them on in disguise. This had never been done before, apparently. And he used
first
that,
one.
And he used that. Yeah, right. What a way to build a reputation, right? And he does something. Let's zoom just a little bit more out, Raghunath, and say, let's look at this whole pastime, this whole passage that we're getting in Bhagavatam about Prthu. What's coming out in this chapter? That he was this ideal king, and a large part of that had to do with him kind of like reestablishing a social and moral kind of order, right? He recognized that the Vedas speak about how when human beings, when they recognize that everything that we get in life is a gift. It's a gift of nature, right? And that therefore to maintain social order and to maintain morality and to receive the blessings that we're meant to receive, that a dharmic society receives, we need to express our gratitude to God or to the gods. In this case, it was to the Mother Earth, right? We need to express our gratitude to Mother Earth through acts of sacrifice, through ritual, and then we're blessed. And so it's kind of a conservative value, right? Scripture speaks about something, there's truth there, there's a pre-existing morality. There's a social order that's based on it. As a group, we all need to get on the same page, and recognize that, and conform to that, right? And we'll be blessed by that. And that's what he managed to pull off as a king. And now the earth is just, we were reading earlier in the chapter, the earth is just like giving, the cows are giving ample milk. The earth is giving grains and fruits and vegetables, and people are living, the oceans are giving pearls and gems, and everything was quite good, right? So from a conservative platform, he established this kind of social order. But now something else is going on, right? Where it's kind of going to start to lean towards a more of a liberal approach, right? There's kind of a balance here where, generally the conservative thing is this guy's breaking the moral order, right? Like Indra came and he was trying to disturb the sacrifice. He was trying to break up the ritual that was establishing this social order, right? And he was doing it for the most selfish of reasons. He didn't even care that these rituals were bringing such good to the benefit of humanity. He was so worried about his own position that he was willing to break it up. And he was willing to transgress morality by dressing up as a holy man to do it. And he got caught once doing it, and then he got caught twice doing it. And all this, first the sages come and they say, he should be killed for this, right? This is such a selfish and destructive act that actually the capital punishment, right?
Right.
And then the priests come along and they say, you know what, your way of killing him is too messy by firing arrows into him, but we can do it. We agree with you that it's justified. We'll do it through mantra, And he's about to do it, and then Brahma comes and he begins to speak from a different angle. But something you'd like to share?
No.
You sure?
I'm just eagerly listening.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway,
then a third authority.
The nuances of justice, right?
Well, you hear that common question, when it comes to dharma and morality, the balance of justice and mercy comes into play now, because everyone was on the side of justice here, right? First, was it Atri Muni, right? One of the great sages. Then the priests, they were also on the side of justice. Prthu Maharaj, he's angry. He's not angry for selfish reasons, but he's angry because this is just so wrong, and he's about to take his life. And then Brahma comes down. Now Brahma's coming like he's respected by everyone. He's dispassionate. He's seeing truth. He's seeing a deeper truth, and everybody respects him. And now he's going to come down and he's going to argue that he shouldn't be killed for two reasons, right? One of them is because actually, and this is something that in that summary that we had before, sometimes good people do bad things, right? His action, his behavior is definitely problematic. It's definitely wrong. But actually, he's a very good person. Right? He's an exceptionally good person.
Whenever we hear about Indra, he's doing something wrong. Whenever we hear about
Indra, Bhagavatam.
Wrong.
Not in the Vedas, right? But in the Bhagavatam.
Right. In the Bhagavatam, he's always causing trouble.
Yeah. And again, and so we might, if we only read Bhagavatam, we might think he's just a constant, like problem maker. But the point is, Bhagavatam it's keying in on certain points in his life to show these dharmic reversals, right? That even the most dharmic person, even if he doesn't connect, in a more deeply spiritual way, he'll feel fear, he'll feel anxiety, he'll make a fool of himself. And so that's happening here. So one of the reasons was he's a good person. Actually, you're about to kill a very good person. Granted, he did something very wrong, but let's not. What is it? Prabhupada said it this way. He said, "Do not remove but improve," right?
Ooh, I like
do
that.
not remove but improve.
Not remove but improve.
Yeah. So in other words, he's a really good person. He's done something really wrong. Let's correct the behavior. Let's not kill him. And the second one had to do with consequentialism. That if you keep opposing him, what he's introduced here, this adharmic idea of dressing up as a holy man and bringing in this deceit and so on, it's only going to increase. So, and then now he's going to say, so just leave it at 99, right? You've done 99, and imagine what that's like when you have like a goal, a really hard goal.
You're going to do this triathlon, but at the last yard, or the last meter, just stop right there.
Yeah, you're running a marathon, and at like 23 and a half miles, right? Is it 24 miles that they do marathons? There, 22?
26.2.
26.2. So you do 26 and you got 0.2 to go.
So
And so
don't
just
to the
stop
point
right
two.
there.
Just stop.
You're like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what's going to be asked now of. So gets really interesting. What Brahma will say now. What was the text? 33.
Text 33. 33. 30.
No, 32.
33.
32. Let there be only 99 sacrificial performances for Maharaj Prthu. Lord Brahma concluded. Lord Brahma then turned towards Maharaj Prthu and informed him that since he was thoroughly aware of the path of liberation, what was the use of performing more sacrifices?
That's really important too. This is again,
Right.
Bhagavatam's point is like these external rituals, they play a role, but when you understand what's higher than that, you already understand your connection to the supreme. You already
get
understand
it.
bhakti. Yeah.
Yeah, you already get it.
Yeah, it's a good argument.
Lord Brahma continued, let there be good fortune to both of you. For you and King Indra are both part and parcel of the personality of Godhead. Therefore, you should not be angry with King Indra, who is non-different from you. Meaning you're all on the same team here.
You're on the same team, and you're both composed of the spiritual energy of God, right? What Brahma is doing is he's saying you've been on that Vedic platform, right, where there's morality, there's immorality, there's actions that need to be done for the social good, but these are all, it's dharmic, but there's something beyond that. And that's the deeply spiritual, and he's trying to take his vision up to the deeply spiritual, and that's where Bhagavatam's taking us.
My dear king, do not be
Agitated.
My dear king, do not be agitated and anxious because your sacrifices have not been properly executed due to providential impediments.
Okay, hold it, Raghunath. You're going to love this verse. I think you're really going to love this verse, right? This verse is so deep where this goes, and it's so important for all of us. Read that
Kindly
again.
ready? Read that again.
Yeah.
Kindly take my words with great respect. We should always remember that if something happens by providential arrangement, we should not be very sorry. The more we try to rectify such reversals, the more we enter into the darkest region of materialistic thought. Like, right, why did that happen? How could I undo that? I want to do over. I want to, what do you call it? Command Z. I want to undo what just happened. They say that fate is the language of God. What do you think about that?
Oh, fate is the language.
Boom, Mara, come on.
That's a T-shirt if I've ever seen it. Fate is the language of God. Yeah. So again, he's saying to, someone might say, in our current world, right? Someone say, well, what's with this gaslighting? He was doing a really good thing, and now you're saying, maybe the problem is the way that you're looking at this, right? Maybe the problem is with you. You see what I'm saying?
Exactly.
It's like, someone would say, no, he was doing something good, and now you're coming in here and saying that he's got to think more deeply about his own existential, thing. Stop gaslighting. But really, this is called spiritual thought. This is like when you're introspective. Yeah.
When you're introspective and you put yourself in so many different shoes to see it from every different vantage point.
Right.
I mean, come on. What's the other option? Mob rule. Let's get him.
Right. So he's saying, let's look at it again. Do not be agitated and anxious because this good work that you're doing has not been properly executed. Why? He doesn't say because of Indra. He says because of providential impediments. Interesting, right? So in other words, you're trying to do something, and now at a certain point, a thoughtful person doesn't keep banging their head against the wall and making things worse because they're attached, right? So he's saying, see this as providence. See this as the universe speaking to you, right? And then he says, now kindly take my words with great respect. In other words, he's framing this, right? I'm going to share something with you right now. I'm going to ask you to really take this in because it's not an easy thing necessarily to hear, but it's something very valuable. He says we should always remember that if something happens by providential arrangement, I got a disease, my business went under, this happened, that, there could be so many things. That if something happens by providential arrangement, we should not be very sorry. We should not be anxious. We should not be depressed. We should, the more we try to rectify such reversals, the more we enter into the darkest regions of materialistic thought.
Right? The mind just starts playing things out. How
the
could I have
loops.
done it again? I wanted another chance at that. If I only did this instead of this.
The
We're
turbo
just
scenarios.
living in turbo scenarios, living in the mind, trying to recreate the past and how it can be different and how it could have delivered a different time. We just become bitter at the world.
It reminds me of that story we've told before that Srila Prabhupada once was being massaged on the balcony of the Lotus Building in Mayapur. For those that have been in Mayapur, they may know that building. It's got a nice wide balcony. And so massage was really Prabhupada's like maybe his number one kind of like health
regime.
Yeah, like when you get older, if you get regular massage, it kind of just keeps everything flowing smooth. So he's out there, he's lying down, and something like right next to him on the wall, there was like a hole in the wall, right? Like a brick, I think it was like a brick wall, and there's kind of like some kind of little gully there or something like that. And a bird was building a nest there, and it was making a lot of noise. And so the masseuse kind of chased the bird away, and then he returned to the massage. And then the bird came back and it was making more noise, and it was somehow, sometimes birds are at least so close, it was kind of disturbing. So he chased it off again, and then the bird came back. He chased it off again, and then finally, what he did was he took a piece of paper and he rolled it up into a ball and he stuffed it into that hole so that the bird would have to find another place to build its nest. And then Prabhupada said something. Do you know what he said, Raghunath?
No.
He said that bird is like us. It's working so hard to try to change its circumstance, not realizing that there's a higher power all along, right? That's just watching this and that can thwart its efforts at every moment. And so we're moving through this world. We're working hard to try to change things and adjust things so that they're just the way that we want them. And again and again and again, our efforts are thwarted and thwarted and thwarted, Yeah,
there's a fine line between how much you got to try and how much you have to accept as fate. And it takes a sharp, discerning mind to figure that line out.
Yeah, that, and in a sense, that kind of goes back to where we were in the beginning, right? Like Dharma, or it's not easy always to discern how to respond, and that's why you need wise people, the Mahatmas, the Mahajanas. You follow in the footsteps of the Mahajanas,
Right.
Okay. So, but in any case, such an important point, in the way that it's said, he says, please hear this with great respect, and that the more you try to do, the more we try to rectify such reversals, the more that we don't get it, right? We're not hearing the message of that the universe is telling us, that the more that we fight against it, the more we enter into the darkest region of materialistic thought. And that dark thought, it leads to conflict, it leads to anger, it leads to frustration, it leads to violence,
Sure. We were saying in our retreat class, we all made vows for this weekend here at the farm that we will not complain about anything.
Mm-hmm.
Complaining, blaming, it keeps that mind in the darkest regions of material thought. And trying to blame our way into a better future is not going to happen. If you want a better future, you got to just undo that. And I was just thinking about how some people, that's all they got in their language is right. As soon as you see somebody, they've got, oh, did you hear about this? Did you hear about, and they're just blaming circumstance. Sometimes you get your parents and they'll be blaming, they're still complaining about something they've been complaining about for 20 years. Sure. Why did she marry him? Or why is this happening like this? It's the same complaint. It's been 20 years now. Get over it. But we keep that sonic energy, that dark sonic energy, and it keeps the mind stitched to the material, knitted, stitched, crazy glued to the material realm again and again. So yeah,
let it go.
Yeah, that's a big part. I love that. What did he say?
Darkest regions of
the materialistic thought.
Put yourself in it's where this place. The next chapter, here we're hearing Brahma speak, and in the next chapter, Vishnu speaks. Right? Oh, and it's such good stuff. But Vishnu is going to ask Prthu to do something, and this, to me, you see, like Brahma is saying, let it go, right? Let go of the 100, leave it at 99. Let it go, right? Let go of any anger that you have towards Indra. Definitely what he did is very wrong, but I'm telling you, he's a good person. Trust me on that. Let it go. Okay? And if you're going to fight this, and if you're going to resist it, your mind's going to go to darker and darker places. It's not going to do anyone any good. Let it go, right? Not easy to do. Especially when it's like, I was just trying to do something good. And this guy, the king of heaven, for Christ's sake, like he's coming down
in
here.
a disguise.
Comes in disguise and just tries to ruin it all, and why are you taking his side, right? Why are you letting him off the hook? Not easy to do. But when we get to Lord Vishnu, you know what Lord Vishnu is going to ask him to do? He's going to say, not only forgive him, right? Not only forgive him.
Love him.
Essentially, that's what he's going to say. He's going to say, forgive him. And when you forgive, and you see, to me, this is the point. Like, this is where we go from, like, wanting to walk a spiritual path to the point where it's like, I'm ready to do whatever is necessary on that spiritual path.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The deeper. He's going to ask him not just to forgive, but that when you forgive, he says, I want you to embrace him. And as you embrace him, there should be not one drop of animosity in your heart for him. Right? So it's not like just like officially forgive him. But like, in other words, I want you to align your heart with my heart. I see him this way. I want you to see him this way. I want you to let go of it all. Right? That's the saint. That's the sadhu. That's where, to me, that I, like, personally myself, I feel like in my own practice, on my own path, this is where I'm at in life. It's like, I might be the guy that can say, okay, if you tell me to forgive him, I'll forgive him. But am I the guy that can let go of all the animosity in my heart? That's the depth that we have to take this to. And Bhagavatam is showing it again and again.
Nice. All right, let me see if we get one. How are we doing for time? We get one more.
A few minutes, all right.
Text 33.
5.
Lord Brahma continued, stop the performance of these sacrifices, for they have induced Indra to introduce so many adharmic aspects. Mm-hmm. You should know very well that even amongst the demigods, there are many unwanted desires. Just
it's
see
like
how...
couldn't you see Prthu saying, like, why are you talking to me? Why aren't you talking to him?
I know, he's the guy. He stole my horse.
Yeah.
Just see how Indra, the king of heaven, was creating a disturbance. How did he steal it, too? Did he carry it? Did he ride it?
He grabbed it. He said he was, like, flying,
He flew with the horse. Just see how Indra, the king of heaven, was creating disturbance in the midst of the sacrifice by stealing the sacrificial horse. These attractive, sinful activities he has introduced will be carried out by the people in general. O King Prthu, son of Vena, you are part and parcel of the expansion of Lord Vishnu. Due to the mischievous activities of King Vena, religious principles, dharma, were almost lost. At that opportune moment, you descended as the incarnation of Lord Vishnu. Indeed, for the protection of dharma, you have appeared from the body of King Vena. O protector of the people in general, please consider the purpose of your being incarnated by Lord Vishnu. The adharmic principles created by Indra are but mothers of so many unwanted dharmas, or religions, or spiritual paths. Please, therefore, stop these imitations immediately.
Maitreya
said, when King Prthu thus advised the supreme teacher, Lord Brahma,
was thus advised by Lord Brahma,
he abandoned his eagerness to perform yagyas. With great affection, concluded a peace with King Indra. He let it go. He let his mind be clear. He forgave King Indra. After this, Prthu Maharaj took his bath, which is customarily taken after the performance of the yagya, and received the benedictions and due blessings of the demigods, who were very pleased by his glorious activities. With great respect, the original king, Prthu, offered all kinds of rewards to the brahmanas present at the sacrifice. Since all these brahmanas were very much satisfied, they gave their heartfelt blessings to the king. All the great sages and brahmanas said, Almighty King, by your invitation, all classes of living entities have attended this assembly. They have come from Pitri Loka, that's the planet of the forefathers, and the heavenly planets, and great sages as well as common men have attended this meeting. Now, all of them are very much satisfied by your dealings and your charity towards them.
Okay.
That's it. That's the chapter.
He let it go, and it brought auspiciousness. And the next chapter, next week we start, Vishnu steps up.
Right. So let it go means full forgiveness of the heart, holding no resentment, accepting everything as a divine plan. It's a big one. Mara, we got a long day, long weekend ahead of us. We need some little takeaways of wisdom. What do you have for us? What has our Zoom group posted on the board?
I've got some good stuff.
All right.
Most of our pain is caused by the mind.
Mm-hmm.
Show respect to others by trying to understand them.
Mm-hmm.
Find what we have in common, not our differences.
Mm-hmm.
The purpose of morality is to benefit people.
Yep.
Yes. Okay. You don't like that one?
Everything we get in life is a blessing.
Yeah.
Can be seen that way, yes.
Can be seen that way.
Sometimes good people do bad things.
Sometimes feel like a nut.
You see,
Yep.
Can't use the word sometimes anymore, Mary.
I know, sorry. Do not remove, but improve.
There you go.
Fate is the language of God.
That was a heavy one.
That's a song.
Who'd you steal
title.
it from? Is it?
No, Swami. It is the language of God.
We can't blame our way to a better future.
Can't
Love that
do
one.
it.
Stole that too. Not telling you who.
See obstacles as providential arrangements.
Yep.
Yes.
That's a good one.
Full forgiveness brings auspiciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, yeah.
And wisdom of the sages. It's not just for dented cans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Vivi says, I got 99 yagyas and Indra ain't got one.
All
I
right.
got 99 yagyas. Oh, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for everybody who joined late. I didn't say good morning to. Whenever I see someone joining late, I feel like stopping the whole show and saying good morning. Because if you're listening as an other out there, when you get on Zoom before the show starts, I say good morning to everybody. So it sort of hurts me. It hurts me if I don't say that. Good morning.